that things were hiding.
Yeah, all the rallies and all of that.
And the Kumbh Mela, oh my God.
I know, that was such a horrible sight, really. Quite scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right, it's 8:15 nearly. Shall we begin, Sandeep
Yeah.
Bhai?
Yeah. Let's begin. So, Jai Jinendra, everyone. If I can request you to be on mute, please. But you can show your videos. That way we know that there's an actual human being behind the person. So it would be good if you please show your videos. So we start off the evening. This is, we've been continuing with this book last term, so we'll be continuing again this term. And let me just quickly recite the Navkar mantra. So if you can please close your eyes. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sitanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Loye Sabasahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sava Pava Parasaro Mangalanam Cha Savesim Padamam Havai Mangalam. Jai Jinendra, everyone. So this evening, it is our honor to have Rajan Bhai Shah joining in from Sri Channa Vidyapith, Nairobi. Rajan Bhai happens also to be my brother-in-law, but that is just by the way of a slight light introduction. But on a more sincere introduction, Rajan Bhai has been teaching at Sri Channa Vidyapith, Nairobi, adult classes for the last 25 odd years. And over the years, I have seen his own development in terms of his own internal spirituality, his own understanding, and it has been incredible what he has learned. And it's not just, it's not textbook knowledge that he has acquired. It is more of an internal knowledge and internal understanding. And one thing that struck me was his grasp of Gujarati. When I first met Rajan, he could not even understand. I mean, he could not speak Gujarati. He could not understand or write Gujarati. Now he's able to not only write but read Gujarati as well. And this is all due to his development and necessity to understand our scriptures, and that has driven for him to learn this knowledge. So today he will be continuing this wonderful book, The Art of, it's called Amar Vani, which is Art of Life. Very practical book. It is available on Google if you Google it, and there's a link which we can share. And it's a wonderful book worth reading. But it needs somebody to illuminate, and what better person than Rajan Bhai. So I now hand over to Rajan Bhai. But I request you, please show your videos. Do not be silent witnesses. Get involved. Because this is a very discussive book. So please ask questions. Just unmute yourself and excuse yourself and ask. Do not wait until the end. If something is burning, some burning question within you, then please ask. Thank you. Rajan Bhai, to you.
Thank you, Sandeep Bhai, for those kind words of introduction. For the benefit of this wonderful audience, let me just tell you on a lighter note that the person who actually introduced me to this path is none other than Sandeep Bhai himself. Actually, all the thanks goes to him for bringing us all together onto this common platform. Great. So tonight's session, Art of Living, and we're actually going to share lots of thoughts from Amar Muniji, who happens to be not only a great saint, but also a great social reformer. And before we start tonight's session, I think it would be right to pay our respects to and salutations to all the gurus who have revealed the truth to us, which is unfragmented, infinite, timeless, divine, and it pervades the entire universe. Akhanda Mandala Param. Please listen to this prayer. Great. So we're going to start this session with the first question. What is life and what is the essence of life? And what Gurudev is trying to tell us is life is nothing but ceaseless conflict of opposite forces. So wherever we go, we are going to be in the tempest of life, where we will be standing across opposite forces. And what does one do? What the one who is on the path of duty towards the self, towards the family, towards society, or towards nation. So what Gurudev is trying to tell us is that the essence of life, despite all the conflicts and opposite forces that we face, at each path of duty, we do not deviate from the path of duty. We have to have a lion-like character and not timid like a hare. So first, that's our first learning lesson today, that what do I want to be like? Do I want to be the lion in my life, or do I want to be the timid hare in life? And Gurudev is trying to tell us or remind us of the bravery and the himmat of Bhagwan Mahavir, that you have to have a lion-like character, because life is going to present you with conflict and opposite forces all the time. So the first learning lesson for today is one, do not deviate from your path of duty. And secondly, establish a lion-like nature, not timid like a hare, not wanting to run away from the path of duty. And path of duty would be duty towards the self, duty towards family, society, or the nation at large. So that's the first thing in terms of essence. The second thing Gurudev is trying to establish in us is life is dynamism. And the slok there, or the saying goes, chale chalo, chale chalo. So there is no time for stagnation. The whole idea is that we must march forward in life. And we have two pictures there. Now again, he's trying to tell us, do you want to be ever flowing like the beautiful waterfall, or you want to be stagnant like the pond in the village? Which one do we want to be? And this dynamism, he says, needs to be applied at individual level, society level, again, even at the national level. So life needs to be dynamic, and the breath of life is in the flow of life. This dynamism he's trying to communicate to us should be both in terms of our thought processes as well as our actions. So are we dynamic in our thought processes? Are we dynamic in our actions? Are we able to change according to time, place, and condition? Again and again, we hear the word Dravya, Kshetra, Bhav, Kal. So he's trying to tell us that Mahavir Bhagwan was telling us that there is nothing static. And that's why also the concept of Paryay has been established, the concept of modification has been established in Jainism very well. So the slogan to remember is Chale Chalo, Chale Chalo. Let's keep on marching. No room for stagnation in life. We all need to sit back and examine that where am I stagnating? Am I stagnating at my thought process level? Am I stagnating at my actions? I need to be like the flow of a river. The river keeps on quenching the thirst of those along the way, and eventually it merges into the ocean. So I want to be ever flowing, starting from the waterfall into the river, into the ocean, and not just the pond, which becomes a point of stagnation, pollution. Do I want to be a standpoint of contamination and contempt? So that's the second thing, dynamism. We need to have dynamism in both our thought processes and our actions. So if you look at the ideologies that Gurudev is trying to present to us, he's trying to give us a way of life that will make both our inner world as well as our outer world very beautiful and magnificent. The third point that it's going to talk about is the path of life. And again, interestingly, every analogy takes us back to nature. And the question they're asking us is, do you want a life of a stray and a timid dog? Or do you want the life of a hungry wolf? The ideology is, do you want to be weak? Do you want to be frightened? Do you just want to be flattering other people? Do you want to lead life just to make or waste life, making other people happy? Do you always just want to surrender to other people towards injustice? And that's the reference he's making to a timid or a stray dog. And such cowards, he says, can never face the battle of life. So if we want to face the battle of life, we can't be timid like a stray dog. Then on the other hand, he's saying that you can't be like a wolf also, ever howling all the time, having nothing but fire around you. So if your nature is just fire all the time, if you're ever howling, you have no cooling waters around you, you're as hard as a stone, then you have no place in life. So what he wants is to have the perfect blend between hardness and tenderness in life. And again, he's comparing those qualities with things in nature for us to be able to absorb these ideologies in a much simpler manner. So what he's saying is that, do you have a judicial balance, a samyak or a reasonable balance in your personality between hardness and tenderness? And once again, as we move along, hardness and tenderness will be talked about again later during the talk. The next thing Gurudev is trying to tell us is, what's your purpose in life? Very small but very effective ideologies that Gurudev was trying to present to us. Is your purpose in life just accumulation and amassing material possessions? Khali apne sangrah karwanu chhe? Are we just here to collect material wealth? And he says that for a Shravak, he needs to collect so sangrah karwanu chhe, but with the objective of judicial distribution. Distribution, or what we call vitaran in Gujarati, or dispensation, that you need to what you collect has to have an equitable distribution or dispensation in life. So we need to sit back and see that what I am accumulating, is it beyond my reasonable needs? Am I working towards the betterment of a larger society around me? Yeah. So that's the point on accumulation. Interestingly, Art of Life also incorporates the keys to success. And all of us, where those of us who are working, those of us who run families, those of us who run businesses, all would like to know what are the keys to success. And Gurudev says that your tasks become uninteresting, unsuccessful, and incomplete. Why? Why do our tasks become like that? And he says that most of us have no faith in what we are doing. We do our tasks half-heartedly. We're not really interested in doing what we are doing. And we do not put our full energy and power towards that task. And that's what's resulting in our failure. And he says that for anybody to succeed in life, there are 4 keys that we need. And the 4 keys are faith, faith in what you want to achieve or what you are doing, 100% devotion towards your task, making sure that your buddhi is and your intelligence is applied 100% towards that task, and full energy in terms of your physical energy also being applied to that task. And he says that those are the 4 keys to anyone's success. And he says that the one who wants to be trusted and who wants to have a sense of responsibility towards a larger organization or larger setup in society must exhibit these elements of success. That is faith, devotion, intelligence, and energy. So 4 keys absolutely necessary for our success in life. Would we have ever thought that a Sadhu Bhagwant would be giving us these keys to success? Look at his thought process. Look at the wider aspects of our living that Gurudev had thought of more than 50 years ago and they still apply to the kind of life that we're leading today. And that's why we look at him as a social reformer. The next thing, which in this current times, it really applies well to us. Gurudev says that there is only one difference between those who are brave and those who are cowards. And Gurudev says that the difference is one step. The one who is brave moves forward in the battlefield of life. And the one who is a coward will always move backwards. Ek ke veer ane kayarma ek kadam no fershe. Yeah, and that is one step forward. We all need to sit back and see where in our lives are we being the cowards? Where do we step back from? And where in our lives are we brave enough to put that one foot forward? And we can only progress, as we said earlier, that the slogan is chale chalo, chale chalo. Keep marching, keep marching. And it's only possible with one foot forward. Yeah. So do we want to be the brave one? Do we want to be the coward one? So all the ideas that he's shared under Art of Living are conscious choices that he wants us to make as humans to progress not only towards the development of our inner world, but even our bahya or our external progress is equally important. The beauty of our inner world will also have its reflection on the beauty of our outer world. So bravery is a path that works both inwards as well as on our development of our outer world. So Nikai, if anybody has any questions, just a wave of a hand is good. And
yeah, any questions, please ask. Don't feel shy.
Yes, just a wave is good enough. And then we can look at them at each stage as we come across.
Rajan, I have a question.
Yes.
When we talk about the brave and the coward, what does it mean when we say we take a step back? When we're talking about coward.
Here is talking about the difficulties that we face in life, the challenges that we face in life, the opportunities that we miss out on. And why does this all happen to us? Yeah, because we are not, previous slide ma jem kidu ke energy no upyog che, even our physical energy, we do not use it to the full capacity. Yeah. And to overcome these challenges, suffering, everything that comes to us in life comes to us for a purpose. And we will only be able to work towards that higher purpose if we step forward towards meeting those challenges and getting the learning lessons from those challenges that we face in life. Whereas that's why they're telling us that Jains we have a misunderstanding that ours is a path of non-action. Yeah. But actually ours, for Jain, the path of Mahavir is a path of samyak pravruti, or acting within reasonable means. Do what is reasonable to achieve your goals or to perform your duties. Yeah. And to be able to do that, it needs the path of the brave one to keep stepping forward and developing as we move along. That's what Gurudev is trying to communicate to us. Is that clearer, Rita Ben?
Yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting because we would say, or if you are comparing, like you had that wolf, picture of wolf there, and we would always say, why we don't want to be a wolf. We'll look at him, he's violent, that sort of, status which is showing, But it is interesting how Gurudev has portrayed this.
So going back to that, એ જે wolfની શક્તિનો પ્રયોગ છે એ તમારા પોતા ઉપર કરવાનો છે to bring out your qualities. જે એનો જે બી આપની જે બી કઈ આપની energies છે, whatever abilities that we have, can we use it to the betterment of the people around us? Yeah, કે તમારા પાસે જે ગુણ છે એનો તમે સદુપયોગ કરો છો કે નહીં? Technically we keep on saying કે આપણને જે પુણ્યથી મળ્યું છે એને પાછું આપણે પુણ્ય બાંધવામાં use કરીએ છીએ કે નહીં? What are we doing with what qualities we get? Yeah. And at the same time કે જે હાર્ડનેસ છે એ બીજા ઉપર એનો પ્રયોગ કરવાની આપણને કોઈ જરૂર નથી. It actually should be used on ourselves to better ourselves. Any other question, or we're okay to move?
Yeah, let's move. If people have questions, they will unmute and ask.
Great.
Can I request everybody not to be passive, get interactive, please? Thank you.
Lots of learning happens through questions. Veena Ben is usually with us during the week, and she knows that through the questions, we do lots of extra learning. So it'll be good to have the questions going. So the next idea that Gurudev is trying to present to us is the issue of success and fame. What should we be chasing? And in the current times, this is a very important question that we should be asking ourselves. આપણે સિદ્ધિ જોઈએ છે કે પ્રસિદ્ધિ જોઈએ છે? And siddhi is the success, prasiddhi is the fame. And spiritually, the understanding is that success should be what we should be after. Perfection is what we should be chasing at the moment, and fame will follow on its own. But in the current circumstances, what's our situation, or what's the majority of us after? What are we after? Perfection or fame?
Fame.
Fame, yeah? And he says that's why your equation of life is wrong. He says go back and start with perfecting yourself, and fame will automatically follow. And he says that where there is, without perfection, you may get some fame, but it's very temporary. It wouldn't last for long. So he says in life, we have to strive for perfection. So the ideology there is that to be able to succeed in any walk of life, perfection is what we should aim for, and fame will automatically follow. So a drawing line between success and fame, message out there is success is what is the right thing to be chasing, and not fame. Interesting one. He talks about leadership now. And Gurudev says, either you have to be a leader or you have to be led. There are only two pathways. Either you be a leader or you be led. And again, he says the slogan is chale chalo, chale chalo. And to keep marching, either you're the one leading the march or you're following somebody who has the ability to lead the march. You need to sit back and look at your own qualities and see where your ideologies, your attitudes, and your clarity in seeking your goals, if those are perfect, then you can be the leader. You can be the one in red, and you don't need to be led by other people, and you will lead others onto the path. But he says that until you develop that, until you become perfect, until you have the clarity of hitting the bullseye, then you need, because the slogan is keep marching, He says you need to follow somebody. And we need to keep following somebody so that we don't stagnate. Again, going back to nature, we want to be ever flowing like the river. We don't want to be like the pond. He says that until our thinking opens out, it's okay to be led by somebody else. And let's keep on marching. So identify in all your different aspects of life, you will have a guru that you want to follow. You will identify role models. So apre spiritual progress hoy, so we know who is our role model. If we want to become a healthy person, then we know who our role model is. Yeah. If we want to know or identify the best cooking methodologies, then we know which person we should be following. So everywhere, till we get to the stage of perfection, it's okay to have somebody who we look onto and be able to emulate. And that emulation should result in our development. Yeah. So
Rajan, I have a question.
Yes.
You talk about that until we develop the qualities of leadership, it's good to be led and identify. The problem with the world is that we can easily be led astray by people who we try and follow, not only in spiritual or religious matters, but in a lot of other things. There are so many so-called gurus who, whether it's finance or it is anything in life, who will say, oh, you follow me. And I think it's reached a point where mankind is so skeptical of anybody who says, follow me. There's that cynicism which has come in because people are not sure whether that person is genuine or whether you will develop yourself by following him or not.
I totally agree with you, Sandeep. And that's why Bhagwan presents us with a very good test. We need to apply two things. The test of reasonableness, whether this is reasonable, does it fit into my test of reasonableness? And the second thing is using your Vivek Drashti or your wisdom to discern the power that you develop to discern between right and wrong. Yeah. So those are the two abilities that Bhagwan wants us to develop right from the beginning, irrespective of whether it's to do with our spiritual development, our worldly development, our family lives. Do what is samyak and never give up on your Vivek Drashti. So those are two things, test of reasonableness, and number two, the power to discern between right and wrong. We should never be able to lose that. And that's why understanding Bhagwan Mahavir's philosophy from a broader perspective is very important so that we can apply it to the little things and problems that we face and challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Rajan.
Yes, Sandeep.
Rajan, the other question, I have a question, which is
Yes,
about
please.
Role models. However,
Yes.
I can say, I can sort of understand the importance of role models, but it's really difficult to find role models in life. And I'm not sure whether it is our ego which comes in our way when we are thinking of looking, when, even when we see something, someone who is really, really amazing, yet we will always have some, like Sandeep said, and it's this sort of, we cannot accept what is.
So I think, as you are saying, our biggest stumbling block in accepting a role model is our ego. Because the real model role model or the real guru will be really harsh on you because they want to bring out the best of you. And in the process, if our ego comes in the way, then we will never be able to work with that role model. And I think in life, that's the ego is the stumbling block. Our willingness to give up the ego is the stumbling block. So what it says is we should not lose our dignity or self-esteem, but we should, the element of pride that needs to be worked on. And role models can only have a place if we allow that pride and ego to kind of to settle away, so that the best can be brought out in us in terms of the qualities that we want to develop.
Can I just clarify something? I think you're talking about a mentor, aren't you? Somebody who guides you and...
It's somebody who guides you along the way.
Because
Yes.
a role model could be somebody you admire, but necessarily don't have someone who's guiding you.
Yeah, I mean, a simple role model, Rasila Ben, when you were young and you were learning to cook, तो तुम्हारा role model कौन होता?
My family, my mom.
Your mom, yeah. And
Yeah.
We look upon them to get all the tricks and tips.
No, I'm talking in general, and now people talk about role models, you know, great person, you know, etc. But those people are not going to be within your sphere of guiding you. That's what I.
But I think the best guidance comes from the ones who are nearest to us.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Completely agree with you.
Yeah. कि अपना older siblings छे, अपना parents छे, people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis can actually be our role models.
Yeah, but yeah.
But क्या भी अपने stumbling block क्या छे? अपना ego stumbling block छे ने?
Anything we want to bring about change, it's our ego. I agree.
Yeah. So what he's trying to tell us is...
Rajan Bhai, can I just ask you something? Can you just explore your earlier comments around your test of reasonableness versus the 4 E's that we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
And in particular, the devotion and focus energy in such a way that you're completely faithful in effectively you are really trusting somebody. And there comes for me a dilemma. Where do you then put that test of reasonableness?
What is our overriding principle when we look at Bhagwan Mahavir's teachings? What's our overriding principle? Wherever we want to test reasonableness, wherever we want to bring about, where we want to develop the power of discernment, what's the overriding principle?
What is right and wrong?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is to make that difference between what is right and wrong, there is one basic principle that Bhagwan wants us to use. What's this discerning principle?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. It just needs to reflect and contemplate to get this really, because what you want to do is that it becomes kind of part of your nature rather than becoming.
Okay, Jay, so your first question, in terms of test of reasonableness, and also in terms of the power of discernment, is that which will work towards the kalyan or the betterment of the masses will be reasonable and will be right. And concept of ahimsa, concept of compassion will automatically follow. Then secondly, what you're saying is faith and a devotion chair.
Yes.
It will come to a stage where it is your inherent nature to express these qualities. Yeah, and the path of sadhana is actually to develop, to become that these things actually become your second nature. At the moment, we're kind of sitting on the fence where we need rules and regulations to develop these things called faith, devotion, the right knowledge, and making sure that our charitra goes in the right direction. So we have a set of rules that we follow to make sure these things are achieved. But actually the path of sadhana is to exactly what you said. You want these things to become your nature.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is what the Mari Bhagwan's path of sadhana is actually that. Yeah. કે તમે જે બી તમારું inherent nature છે is what is coming out. Yeah. That's what is. Yes.
Thank you.
Another great point that he's trying to bring out, that do we like to hold on to things in life, or we want to go towards the summit of life? Yeah. What he says is, what are these scaffoldings in life? Rasalaben, શું લાગે છે આપણી લાઈફમાં આ બધું સ્કેફોલ્ડિંગ શું છે જેને આપણે પકડીને બેઠા છીએ? Rasalaben, what do you think is this scaffolding in life?
I thought I was unmuted. All the sangro we do, you know. Everything we collect and everything we sort of pile up. So everything we do and we don't share it out. So, you know, if you were free, that's how I understand it, you know.
Yes, you're on the track. Because what he's trying to tell us is that tamari wealth che, tamaru honor che, tamari family che, tamara friends che, all your acquaintances.
Yes.
What do scaffolding che? And initially everything is necessary. Ane punyati apane a બધું મળે છે. So what are we going to do out of it?
He's talking about attachment here.
Yes, he's talking about our attachments. Yeah. Are you going to hold on to them? Or are you going to make the best use of these things that you have been presented to and get to the summit of life?
Yeah.
The problem is that આજે આપણને બધી વસ્તુ છે, wealth, honor, family, friends, acquaintances, આપણું પકડ or our hold is so strong on them that they become poison-like for us. And he says you need to know when to drop these things. It's hard છે કે તમને ખબર પડે કે how to drop this, and the dropping he's not talking about not having these things. The dropping he's talking about is these very things that are our scaffolding. They will become the throne or the summit of life when we use it for the benefit of the masses around us. Yeah? Tamara wealth che, tamara honor che, tamara qualities che, tamaraમાં જે ગુણ છે, your friend circle, your acquaintances. How do you use all these things around you for the benefit of the larger society around you? And that's what he's calling changing it to the throne or reaching the summit. Laying our life to the altar of human service. When આપણે તો the first picture છે ને, I think that's what we like. Yeah, holding on to everything. This is the I situation, and the one on the summit is the V situation. The one who is WE is the one who can experience freedom. And that's what Gurudev is trying to communicate to us. Yeah. So I have problems. One minute. I'll let you ask that question. I share a thought and then I let you ask that question. What he's trying to communicate, was to or having something is not a problem. The problem is your possessive attitude towards what you have. That's where the problem is. Please continue with your question.
Yeah. સંભળાય છે?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. ના હું કહેતી હતી કે આ કોવિડ આવ્યું ને ત્યારથી આ લાસ્ટ 1 year એટલું બધું શીખ્યું કે આ બધું જે બહુ બધું ભેગું કરેલું હતું, I think there is no અત્યારના કંઈ યુઝ જ નથી કરી શકતા આપણે એ બધી વસ્તુઓનું. તો આઈ થિંક કોવિડ હેઝ ટોટ અસ અ લોટ કે ઘણું લાઈફમાં શીખવાડ્યું COVID.
Yeah, so there goes the saying that they tell us that wardrobe ma ek varash thi vastu je aidi na hoy, that means that we don't need it. So it
Yeah,
is the current circumstances actually tell us how much we have accumulated that which we really don't need. Yeah, and which we could have used for that resource could have been spent for the benefit of somebody else somewhere who has a greater need than us. Yeah. So as we said earlier, આજે બધું આપણને લાગે કે આ સફરિંગ કે કોવિડ નું સિચ્યુએશન અને કેટલા દોઢ વર્ષથી second year going, we are all undergoing it. But I think human race માટે સૌથી મોટો learning lessons individually we should get out of this. That what is it that it's trying to present to me in life? Yeah, where did I go wrong towards prakriti or nature that now I have been presented with this? Yeah, and as we all agree that ours is the path of self-responsibility. આપણે તો કોઈ કઈ જ ના, આ સ્વાધ્યાય ગ્રુપમાં આપણે કોઈ કહી ના શકીએ. It's the Chinese who brought it to us. We brought it to ourselves. We have contributed equally towards this happening. Yeah. So it's a part of self-responsibility. And in scaffolding versus throne, what it's saying is કે જે પુણ્યથી મળે છે એનું આગળ આપણે શું કરવું છે? પુણ્યનું બંધ કરવું છે કે પાપનું બંધ કરવું છે? Yeah, and he said that's the only way towards freedom is punya from punya. Yeah, so that's the scaffolding and the throne.
Rajanbhai, I guess.
Yes.
Rajanbhai, I guess the other thing which sort of the picture represents is the scaffolding. Is ke બધું આપણને જે મળ્યું છે, all the people we have, everyone is there for a reason, and we are all and we move up. When we are at the top, then it is because of them. It's appreciating them. It's having gratitude. આપણે પોતે એમને એમ નથી પહોંચ્યા. There is so many circumstances, people, everything has allowed us to also climb up.
So in as much as the scaffold is important, and gratitude and appreciation in the current times absolutely important, but je vastuni bakad છે ને, that we need to live. Yeah. And for people, wealth, our circumstances. We always want to sit back and cry about situations that we were put in. Yeah, and that's what he's trying to tell us. Those who want to be set loose need to go beyond these things.
So Emma, Ajare, when you are at the top, and Gurudev talks about weak, and this is a concept of weak. What does that really mean in this? Because આપણે જ્યારે આપણે ઉપર પહોંચે આપણને તો થાય કે આપણે જ કર્યું બધું.
What it's trying to tell us is કે જે આપણને પુણ્યથી બધું મળે છે એનો સદુપયોગ ક્યાં થવો જોઈએ? What it's trying to say is કે આઈમાંથી V philosophy માં જવાનું છે. અને જે V philosophy, the one who doesn't have, actually Karma Bandh, now I can introduce some technical bits. Karma Bandh no more karan શું છે? What is the main reasoning behind bondage of karma?
Attachment.
So જ્યાં I માંથી V માં convert થઈ જાય તો વચ્ચે drop શું થઈ ગયું?
Big more, big ego.
Ego and attachment dropped. When we move from I to we, and that is why it's talking about the freedom at V stage.
Yeah.
That's why it's talking about the freedom. Karma નું freedom ની વાત કરે છે. એક વખત attachment મૂકી દેશો, so we are going to be karma free. That's the freedom. That's the summit. Yeah. અને આપણા માટે કર્મ free summit શું છે? Yeah. Karma free summit. What's the karma free summit? 14th
Happiness all the time.
14th Gunasthan is where we want to be.
Yeah. Permanent happiness. Yes.
Yes, bliss, permanent happiness. But the thing that is stopping us there is this attachment. And એને scaffolding કીધું. In as much as scaffolding જરૂર છે, you'll get to a point when you need to drop it. Yeah? Great. Shall we move? Very interesting theory that it presents to us, the theory of rebound. Yeah? And Gurudev, again, two classic examples from our life. Yeah? કે જ્યારે નિલેશભાઈ બોલ પડે છે ત્યારે શું થાય છે? What happens to the ball when it hits the ground?
It bounces up again.
It bounces up again. And what happens to water when it hits the rocks? The second picture. Yeah, it splashes again with a greater force. Yeah, and he says that, do you apply this in your life? What do we do when we have downfalls in our life? Okay, we're saying that we are the superior race. We are the human beings. But what do we do when we have a downfall? Do we have this ability to rebound like a ball with double the force? Do we have the ability to strike back against the rock and splash with greater force? And he says mankind over time lost this ability. And you need to bring that. અત્યારના ટાઈમમાં તો આપણા માટે બહુ important છે. That how જે सम्यक person હશે, the one who has a reasonable attitude towards life, will really use these current times to bounce back like a ball into action. Yeah, apne jo all the time complaint situation maresu, then nothing is going to happen. He says, use that downfall to bounce back again. And the pulse of life will only come back when we bounce back. And this is a very important secret that he's sharing with us. Ek tamaru downfall thai, that should prepare you to strike back with double the force and come back into action much faster and higher than where you started off from. But we as human beings, what do? Yeah? What's our tendency? What do?
We wallow in self-pity.
Exactly. Every stroke of misfortune, and we are into self-pity. And Gurudev says, ke je reasonable manas hase, he will never allow that to happen. Yeah? And I think this is an important lesson that we could have even seen our forefathers following, that every pitfall that they had, and they would bounce back into action. આપણા જે challenges છે, આપણા જે circumstances face કર્યા છે, I think we have no reason to complain when you compare it to what they underwent. Some of them left homes when they were between 10 and 12 years old, but they really knew how to chart life. And Gurudev is exactly talking the same thing. What he's trying to tell us is, do not be afraid of your mistakes. Use those mistakes to bounce back into life. Very important for all of us. Another very important ideology that Gurudev wanted to present, and he says he was once in Delhi, and he was at the top of the Qutub Minar. So, he sort of climbed up into the heights of the Qutub Minar, and then he looked down upon the streets, and he was trying to see આ બધા જે sounds છે, what do they resonate to me like? Yeah, is it very discordant sound. What do I need to do with it? And he says, at that time I remembered that from a spiritual standpoint, every now and again, man needs to move into a higher plane of operation. Approach existence che, approach thinking che. What plane of existence are we on at the moment? What is this commotion and
very day to day, very much involved with everything.
Yes.
Not giving ourselves the space and the time to step back or to step away.
Yes, and exactly that's what he was trying to say. Climbing the higher plane or looking at things. He was exactly telling us the same thing. From climbing.
You are muted, Rajan bhai.
No, I'm not muted.
No, we can hear Rajan.
You can hear him.
Oh, why am I then?
Okay, so what he was trying to say is, when he meant the Qutub Minar, he meant that the higher plane of existence. Our problem is that we're involved in the mundane existence, and this is where we have commotion, where we have noise, we have banging, yeah, and our old confusion, discordant thought processes. This is what he was trying to talk about. And he says, look at life from a distance, yeah, and time and again move into the spiritual plane of existence. Karuk life ne distance ki jo, yeah, give yourself some distance and make space for less conflict, peace and bliss, and harmony to arise. And different pathways of sadhana, whether we look at meditation, we look at the art of silence, we look at doing samaik, we look at mantra sadhana, all this is what it's trying to tell us is we need to move into a higher plane of existence so that we can create time where we resolve conflict, we can be more peaceful and blissful, we are in harmony, we're able to change our thought patterns and look at life with a wider and bigger picture in mind. That's what the objective is. And that's what he was saying, move to a higher plane of existence. So all the time, commotion, we need to move away from that. And this commotion is at the mind level. We need to give ourselves a break to clear our thought processes, to clear our resonance. The wavelength at which we're resonating is very important. With the Samberusha sufferings can be blessings. Yeah. And this is exactly what Gurudev is telling us. That every suffering that we undergo is supposed to be a blessing. And jya sansar che, misfortune and suffering has to be there. Otherwise, we would be out of the chakra of sansar. Yeah. So there is bound to be misfortune and suffering. And the analogy he gave was the beating of the drum. So jare drum mati sound nikre che, to ena mera eti nikre che ki koi striker joye. Does it? Exactly. The drum needs a striker. And what he's trying to tell us, your music of life will never be there if you don't have the striker in your life. And the striker in your life is all the suffering that you're undergoing. That strikes you into different wavelengths of operation and you resonate music, just like the drum does when the striker hits the drum. Yeah? But apne to suffering thi etla bhi hai, we don't allow the drum to have a strike. Yeah. So how are we going to resonate at a higher level if we don't understand the basics of suffering? Yeah. So again, he's saying that these are opportunities to develop strong personalities within ourselves. Every element of misfortune that you have undergone should actually reflect into your personality development. Your spiritual energy will resonate differently through all the suffering that you undergo. And then you start, the frequency and the wavelength at which you operate also has an impact on those around you. So more important, Pramante, how we take the challenges of life. And really good analogy that the drum can never produce good sounds if it doesn't have a striker. So our life must striker challenges, misfortunes, or what we are calling the sufferings. But actually, those are our stepping stones to our own development. And that's what Gurudev wants us to think about. Can you imagine, ek analogy ma, he has made sure that he relates to something in nature which sits very well in our mind. Yeah. So the next thing, you want to be hay or you want to be gold? Rasila Ben, hay or gold?
Gold. According to your pictures, I would love to be gold because I don't want to burn.
Nature, we burn like, hay. We burn like hay. Yeah. And he says that the choice is yours. Yeah. And whether you respond to what is provided to in your outside environment or you react to it. Yeah. And a gold nu response that it glitters even more once put into fire. Yeah. And a henu reaction and it burns. So when we are faced with circumstances and suffering, do we want to be hay-like or we want to be gold-like? Yeah. Do we want to shine out of these problems, make sure that we develop ourselves better than where we started from? Yeah. So reactions and responses is what will make the difference between hay-like and gold-like. And that's what he's trying to communicate to us. The next thing he says is great human beings learn to play with the dangers of life. Yeah. And human beings are like elephants, not like mosquitoes who like to be in the dark areas. Yeah. Very important is that we actually engage and put to the best use our energy for the service of humanity. Conflicts and struggles will be there, but how do we use them to develop ourselves? Or do we just want to be that little mosquito in the dark cell? How do you want your life to be? A battlefield for the strong one or a mosquito in a dark cell? The choice is yours. Yeah? So clarity of goals, will be on the battlefield. And that's where we as Kshatriyas or the people of Mahavir belong, in the battlefield. And the battle kona sathe che? Bija sathe ke pota sathe?
With the self.
The real battle is with the self. And that's the war that we need to win over. Great. The next thing is promises and temptations. And we all know Rajamati and Ratnami's story very well, where Rajamati actually told Ratnami that, are you wanting to be the person who eats his own vomit? Yeah, that's dog-like behavior, and it's better to die in that situation. So what Gurudev is trying to tell us is you cannot compromise on your principles. No matter what your temptations are, the art of life is never make compromises. Tamara je core principles che, ત્યાં ક્યાંય compromise ન થવું જોઈએ for a successful life. So that's what he presented in Keeping Your Word. Ratnami's story in Uttara Dhyan Sutra, chapter 22 has been presented very well. And then he says that benevolent exploitation for survival. We as Shravaks and Shravikas, we have to work, we have to earn to survive and also make other people survive. And what do? We want to make sure that we churn out the world's resources like the first figure at the expense and cause injury and harm to other forms of life? Or shall we be like the second picture where our exploitation is for survival, for the beneficial use of those around us? Okay, where are we at this stage and where should we be?
We are really misusing the environment. As you can see, there's a lot of climate change all over the world.
Yes, yes.
And we have squeezed the earth out. And I think the pandemic is partly as a result of this imbalance
exactly
that we've created.
Yeah. So it says that for survival, you will need things, but how do you obtain those things? How are you doing? Tamari economic activities che, how do you make sure that they are conducted with minimum violence and injury to other forms of life around us? And he says that only take that which is absolutely necessary for your comfortable living.
Rajan, I have to say, this is the most difficult concept to put into practice in today's world. And in a simple example, okay, if we all like mangoes in London, okay?
Yes.
Now look at the carbon footprint that it has done and what difference, but we still go and buy it. And the more you buy, the more you create the carbon footprint and you create economy for people on the other side of the world. So there's a big dilemma about creating jobs and wealth for people who are on the other side of the world.
Tamaro bhav bo important. Ane chele avse pachu ke ek vastuma tamaro je bhav che or your inner feelings, yeah, apne jare mango consume kariye che tyare bhav su che apne. Yeah,
I mean, we are attached to the taste of mango. That's why.
Exactly. But eventually, thodo kapru change in thinking badlai, to e bhav su thase. Yeah, actually, jare mango khaye to bhav kya sudhi pahunchvo joye, feeling kya sudhi pahunchvu joye. Which is asking for a higher level of thought process. But where should it reach?
I'm not following you, so I don't know how to answer.
Jo, first bhav to change. Ke mane bo bhave che etle hu khau chu.
No, but you also think, okay, if I buy, then somebody else nu vechai, so it creates a line of follow.
Look at that chain, and amaro bhav producer jene mango seed plant kari thi ne, ત્યાં સુધી જો તમારો ભાવ પહોંચી જાય, yeah.
Then you can say that with everything in world, and then you find excuses for things. So I think what you're trying to say is, whatever you do, just get what is absolutely needed, because sometimes
exactly.
What you need,
reasonably comfortable living, and make sure that you're not stepping on somebody else's footsteps. Yeah, jo mango lewa ma બીજા 5 જણા ને હિંસા થતી હોય તો પછી મારે mango નહીં ખાવાની. Yeah, that's what it's trying to tell us. Yeah,
I was thinking about it. Yeah.
Yes, and Gurudev's example was very good, and he says ke apne in the olden times, how were we milking the cows?
By hand.
How did we? By hand. અને પેલા જે પેલું milk હોય exactly, yeah. So એના જે dependence છે એને પેલા મળે પછી આપણને મળે દૂધ. So એ કહે છે કે તમારું thinking should be like that whatever I am creating first is for the benefit of others, અને એમાંથી જે બચશે, what remains is for my self use, for my reasonable living. પણ આપનું opposite છે.
Opposite છે, of course, yes.
કે પહેલા મારું comfortable living અને જો કાંઈ બચે તો બીજા માટે.
Yeah, yeah.
અને બચવાનું છે જ નહીં, because comfortable living ની કોઈ સીમા નથી.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why it started the other way. That think about somebody else first before fulfilling your own needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the absolute necessity will become within a framework which is operational. So his ideology is very nice. It's an ideal way of living in this world. And the resources that we can create can be used for the benefit of so many people around us. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
The next thing it talks about is hardness and softness. So તમારે જે કોકોનટ છે એમાં બારે હાર્ડનેસ છે અને અંદર સોફ્ટનેસ છે અને એક બાજુ પથ્થર છે. તો અગેન જે આપણે બિગિનિંગમાં વાત કરી હતી ને, it's coming again. કે you need to be hard in terms of your principles, the truth that you stand for, the values that you stand for. But at the other end, you also need to be soft in terms of the love, the respect, the dignity that you give other people, the compassion that we express, the flexibility that we have in life. Yeah. તો આપણને પથ્થર બનવું છે કે નારિયેળ બનવું છે? Yeah. The choice is ours. Yeah. And in life, we need to make that important choice. Yeah. આપણે really our nature should be like the coconut, very nurturing. Just a few more points and we are going to be through. And then he says, where does the best music of life beat from? Yeah? And एक iron slab hoy and ek butter hoy. Sometimes you need to be hard, sometimes you need to be soft. And આપને જ્યારે ગિટાર છે તો એના જે chords છે, to get the best music out, sometimes you need to create tension and sometimes you need to release that tension, the hardness. Now, if we appreciate this in life, then we are going to be able to have a very balanced life. And any mastery, ક્યાં hardness છે, ક્યાં tensile થવાનું છે, ક્યાં softness ની જરૂર છે, very important, not only for ourselves, but also to have and make the best of relationship with people around us. So the best music of life beats when there is a balance between tension or jam, softness and hardness can be released. And then as he goes towards the end, he talks about life and death. So we've been taught that જ્યાં life છે ત્યાં breath છે, and where there is no breath, there is no life. That's our basic teaching. But he actually says that life's new definition is making your existence felt by others through sacrifice. So જ્યાં તમે તમારી life બીજા માટે sacrifice કરો છો, that is life. And the day you have a selfish existence, you're already dead. Yeah. So we need to think back and see, do I want to use every moment of my breath for the benefit of those around me? Or is it just for my own existence? Yeah. And the last thing, which we'll touch again upon, was the spirit of ahimsa. And he's just using ahimsa as an example, but it applies to everything that we do in life. What has happened over a period of time is we have only looked at things from the gross level. આપણે જે સૂક્ષ્મ છે, or the core of things, the bhav of everything has been forgotten. And he says that ahimsanu je mood pran che, je bhav che, we have forgotten in life. And what we have been left with is just the outer covering of do's and don'ts. Yeah, and that's why life has become so miserable. And he says, go back to the core, the bhav of everything that Bhagwan was trying to communicate to us, so that we can re-establish it at the thought level, at the feeling level, and make it have a greater impact on life. So જે બી વસ્તુ આપણે follow કરતા હોય, let's try to go beyond the bow of it and not just remain at the core of following the do's and the don'ts. That's why for the outside world, Jainism has been reduced to a religion of do's and don'ts. Nobody really understands the core essence of what Bhagwan was trying to tell us. There are lots of tips that have been shared today. We need to sit back and look at each one of these tips and see what's the core or the most important thing that I need to adopt to make the changes in my life. The whole book itself is, as I said earlier, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It wants to create beauty not only in our inner world, but it wants, Gurudev is trying to tell us that wherever you are, whatever circumstances you are faced with, there is no escapism. Make the most of it. And how can you make your life, both inner and outer, the most beautiful experience? So this book is really worth exploring. Every time that I look at it again, we're able to see that he's trying to communicate lots of depth to us, and every reading renders a new perspective. Sandeep Pai and Nilesh Pai, SCVP London, I take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to present my thoughts to you tonight. It's been a wonderful experience for me again to look at this book at a different angle. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Rajan. It's been fantastic, actually. It's really good.
Thank you, Rajan Bhai. From all of us in London, it's 11:30 there, and you are still awake. So thank you very much, Rajan, for honoring us with your presence. And we will, of course, call you again, so you can't escape that quickly. It was a very interesting lecture, and you really thrown a great light on Gurudev's Amarvani. So thank you once again, all of you. And now I will just request Rasila, if you can recite the Manglik, please.
Om Namo Arhantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sarvesim Patamam Havai Mangalam, Chattari Mangalam, Arahanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam, Sahu Mangalam, Kevali Panato Dhammo Mangalam, Chattari Logutama, Arihanta Logutama, Siddha Logutama, Sahu Logutama, Kevali Panato Dhammo Logutamo, Chattari Sharanam Pavajjami, Arahante Sharanam Pavajjami, Siddhe Sharanam Pavajjami, Sahu Sharanam Pavajjami, Kevali Panatam Dhammam Sharanam Pavajjami.
Thank you. Just to let you know, tomorrow morning we have a session with Pujya Acharya Sri Channaji Maharaj. So those, I think it was shared in the various WhatsApp groups. So those who are obviously at home and not doing much, please do make an effort to join. It's a very rare opportunity. And wish you all a good evening. Rajan, once again, thank you very, very much for taking out your time and giving us this wonderful thing. And everybody, if you can unmute and give a clap to Rajan Bhai, please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and it's great to engage with like-minded people.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Rajendra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.